I was trying to make a joke about like, oh yeah, we've drank actually like double this age before, without trying to seem like pretentious or like a douche or whatever. But like I couldn't think of a way to like express the joke without sounding like an idiot or douchey. So
hey, welcome to Super Social Club. I'm Jeremy.
This is Whisky in the Six. I'm Rob.
Welcome to the Whisky Rant Podcast.
It's a little crusty.
It's frustrating.
And it's going to be a little bit of a rant.
I don't understand it. I don't know why.
Some sort of injustice.
Anyway, end rant.
Hello and welcome back to the Whisky Rant Podcast. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Rob.
And today we are joined by a very special guest, Jack, the brand ambassador for Canada for the Glenlivet. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
Bringing
you've brought
exceptional gifts.
Only the best from the Glenlivet.
I mean, the price of admission to get on the podcast is 40-year-old whiskey nowadays, isn't it?
It seems that way.
I'm glad to know we've set the bar.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, what are you going to bring, though?
Honestly, I had the luxury of trying this already once, and I will, spoiler alert, say that this is fantastic whiskey.
Yeah, so you guys had like a little Glenlivet event.
Yes.
My invite got lost in the mail, I guess.
We'll invite you to the 41. Don't worry.
There we go.
But it looked like a really nice, event you guys put on there, and this was like unveiled essentially at that time. It's a new release, right?
Yeah, so it's a new release. So we launched it sort of globally at the end of last year, which was to commemorate the 200th year anniversary of the Glenlivet being a licensed distillery. Throughout that year, we did limited edition release, like our 200-year edition 12-year-old, which you can get in Canada, our 55-year-old, which is the oldest Glenlivet we've ever released, and this, the 40-year-old, which is the oldest ever permanent expression in the Glenlivet range.
Nice.
So I don't even know if Jeremy knows this story, but when I first started drinking Scotch, Glenlivet 18 was my go-to. I must have replaced that bottle probably 8 or 9 times.
I was gonna say you probably had like a subscription service where just one got delivered to your house every month.
Yeah, I wasn't. My collection wasn't like this back in the day, and it was a one in, one out kind of system.
Yeah,
you know, maybe 2 at a time if I got crazy, because you know money was different back then. But yeah, Glenlivet 18 was a staple on my bar.
I think for us too, like, you know, obviously starting out in whiskey, Glenlivet 12 is kind of like a staple that everyone like goes to. It's maybe like, you know, one of the single malts that you drink first.
Yeah, 100%.
And then the 18 for us, like, it was that step up, but it was still like really well priced.
Very well priced.
And really good whiskey.
I think it was like $105.
It was just when we started drinking way back.
Yeah, we're dating ourselves a little bit here, but
like really that was only like, I don't know, 10 years ago.
It wasn't that long ago. Yeah, it was maybe 12 years ago tops.
Yeah.
Well,
it would be badass to just start with the 40-year-old, but you brought some other stuff with you as well.
We'll warm the palate up to the 40s.
Warming palates up. I guess people like suggest doing it, but sure. So like, what else do we got on the table today?
Absolutely. So I've brought 2 of my favourite from the Glenlivet range before we move on to the kind of the 40, the big showstopper. So starting on the left, we have the Glenlivet 15-year-old. This is what we call the French Oak Reserve. This whiskey's been around. We've been making this one for a little while. It's not the 12-year-old, 3 years older. It's a different formula for the malt, different cask makeup. But what's important with this one is it's a selective finish in Limousin oak from France. So new Limousin oak.
Limousin oak. So
super sweet on the nose.
What is Limousin oak? Because I don't think I've heard of that.
Absolutely. So Limousin oak is a style of French oak which is traditionally used to make cognac casks. This cask has never previously held cognac. This is new Limousin oak. And the Limousin forest is sort of almost famous for its cattle as well. Like Limousin beef is quite famous.
Yeah.
It's a region in the heart of France. But really, by putting some of the whiskey into this Limousin oak and then adding it back into the formula, we're looking to add a layer to the whiskey. It's why we're starting with the 15, because for me this is like super sweet on the nose, very balanced. It's got a nice depth and spice to it, but just a very approachable, balanced malt.
Yeah, it is kind of like elegant, light, elegant, kind of like, it's got some floral notes to it. It is a good starter.
I love that it's new Limousin oak, because I think, like you said, the only other spirit that does that is cognac, right?
Absolutely. And the Glenlivet 14-year-old, which you can get in Canada, which is only available in North America, the 14 is a cognac finish. So we're using those French oak casks that have previously contained cognac But with the 15, it's just new limousine oak. It's giving it, for me, I never like to put tasting notes in people's minds, but it gives it a really nice nuttiness. I always describe this whiskey as an almond croissant in a glass.
An almond croissant?
Yes, absolutely. It's my Scottish accent. It's not very good at French.
How do you say
I heard
croissant?
almonds.
Yeah, almond croissant.
That's not
Almond.
what you said.
What did I say?
You butchered what he said.
How do you pronounce croissant?
Croissant.
Croissant. You have to say it like in a
Croissant,
French
yeah.
accent, kind
Croissant.
of. Croissant.
Croissant. That's very European.
You don't say crescent.
I say croissant.
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 Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's right. It's definitely not right.
If it tastes nice, doesn't matter what you call it.
Exactly. I would say tons of with the almond, you're getting a lot of raisin and even almost fresh grape too, or something fresh fruit.
Absolutely. So the Glenlivet, as a new make distillate, before it ever touches a cask, we're looking for pineapple, banana, tropical. It's obviously there's exceptions to every rule, but it is quintessentially Speyside.
Yeah.
We were the first licensed distillery in the Livet Valley, and our founder George Smith really pioneered what would go on to become known as the Speyside style. The name Glenlivet became synonymous with high quality single malt Scotch whisky. It was a suffix used by many distilleries. That's why we are the one and only the Glenlivet.
Yeah, because you see a lot of other Speyside distilleries mention Glenlivet in their description, but it's, I guess, because it's the area of Glenlivet.
Absolutely, yeah. The parish of Glenlivet, the Livet Valley. Livet means smooth flowing one. So when you taste that 15 and you think, damn, that's smooth, smooth is quite literally in our name.
Yeah.
So it's, the name of the river that flows through the valley. It's home to many distilleries in and around the area. But George Smith, the founder, was the first one to license the distillery in the Livet Valley.
So, a lighter ABV, right? 40%?
Yeah, 40% bottling strength. Most of the Glenlivet whiskies are coming in around that, 40. By the time we get to the 21-year-old, we go up to 43. And then the 40-year-old is a natural cask strength of 46.9. But yeah, most of the Glenlivets tend to be around that 40% bottling strength. The 14, I would really advise trying, because the cognac cask, the high proportion of European oak matured whiskey in the formula of that malt, it still has such a lovely mouthfeel. For being a 40% non-chill filtered whiskey, which I know some people do love their cask strengths, but the Glenlivet is I'm knocking the mics all already.
No, it's all good.
I'm wrecking the joint. The Glenlivet
You're
is
Italian with the hand.
There's Italian in my blood somewhere for talking with the hands, absolutely.
It can't be like this guy is drunk off one sip of 40 ABV Glenlivet 15.
It's an awkward
brand ambassador if I was.
Where did you get this?
You wouldn't be Scottish if you. It's the awkwardness of the mic and the positioning of it. I would say though, there's definitely a nice spice on the finish to this whiskey, right?
It does have good depth of flavor.
Yeah.
For sure. We were talking off camera about ABV and the line of Glenlivet that used to come out, the Nadura range of cask strength whiskeys. Definitely a favorite of people that enjoy that cask strength experience. Do you think that Glenlivet will ever release a range similar to that in the future?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's definitely one I can speak to our cask master about, Kevin, or our master blender, Sandy, because there is love for that cask strength Glenlivet. You can still find a lot of the Naduras sort of in the second-hand market. They were only released a few years ago. We do still do some, in some markets, small batch cask strength stuff.
Right.
At the distillery we've got a lot of single cask strengths, but yeah, there is always that love for the old Nadura range.
And as you mentioned earlier, to give some local love, the Caledonian has a bottle that you can get a pour of.
Yeah, you can go to your local whiskey watering hole and see if you can find an old Nadura cask, because I remember them being great.
Yeah, they are really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the 15. I don't have a lot of experience with it, but it's very nice. I like the spice. I like the fruitiness up front, and it's super sweet.
I mean, for a palate starter, it is a good one for sure.
It's a good place to start.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So is the 12-year-olds. I mean, the 12-year-olds a lot of American oak matured Glenlivet. It's very very much true to the distillery spirit character, so the pineapples and bananas that we're looking for in the new make. But the 15 for me just then adds that extra dimension with the Limousin oak. Light, approachable, balanced whiskey. Just quintessentially Speyside, really.
I've heard a lot of people mention that they just have a small little pour of Glenlivet 12 before they drink anything else for the night. It's just like a palate starter.
Ralphie used to say that.
Used to do that all the time.
Yeah,
just one little sip of that, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, nice affordable way to start the night, and then.
What is the price on this Glenlivet 15?
The 15-year-old retails at 115 at the LCBO.
115.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we have a lot of Alberta fans too. Do you happen to know the price?
I'm not entirely sure the price, but it is obviously available in Alberta. But yeah, around that mark.
Sometimes they come in a little bit less in Alberta.
Yeah. Discount codes available for that.
There you go. Use whiskey. What's your discount code? Whiskey 15 or something?
15 from Whiskey in the 6 at PSW.
There you go. 15 off the 15. It's perfect, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, you want to move on to the 21-year-old?
Yeah, absolutely. We can move on to the 21. So the Glenlivet 21, and we had an old 21 called the Archive Collection for a long time, which people knew. And then about 5 years ago we relaunched the range, and we launched it under the name the Sample Room Collection. The Sample Room being the place where our cask master Kevin formulates the rarest casks of the Glenlivet, these mature Glenlivet casks, and then selects the finishes for them. So with the Glenlivet 21, it's selectively, it's fully finished in Oloroso sherry, cognac casks, and Colheita vintage port casks.
Oh wow, okay.
So port, cognac, and Oloroso, and then we combine all that back together.
Wow.
Yeah, you could tell there's some darker wine maturation here because it is a little darker than the...
Yeah, it's got that nice darker hue to it. Bottled slightly higher, 43.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah.
It's very nice. You definitely get a good richness from this one for sure. And this is a 43% ABV as well, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
The Glenlivet is naturally quite a light, delicate spirit, so it tends to take on the oak character, very well. It's why we have to carefully monitor the finishes so much. And yeah, for me, on the nose, I get a bit more of that sort of cognac cask influence, which I would associate maybe with a 14. But then on the palate, for me, this is like pure Oloroso matured Scotch.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Do you know like the percentages or like the finishing time is quite quick for these, as you said, like?
It's an extended finishing period in across the three casks and then combined back together.
Yeah.
Obviously, it depends sort of cask to cask, but yeah, you're taking Glenlivet that's been matured in your more traditional bourbons and your more traditional hogsheads and sherry casks, batching that together, and then that's what's put into the finishing casks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice indeed. I believe older expressions of the 21 would have a different cask maturation process. Like this one is specific to this release.
Yeah, absolutely. The older 21, the Archive Collection, which is an amazing dram, was an Oloroso finish. But with this, we're really looking at, we have access. Chivas Brothers, the company I work for, I represent like amazing brands, the Glenlivet, Aberlour, Chivas Regal, Royal Salute. Our inventory at Chivas Brothers, we have 6.5 million casks. So we have access to, long-standing agreements with the Coopers in Kentucky, sherry cask suppliers in Jerez, which you'll see particularly in the 40-year-old, cognac distilleries in France. And so it's really just showcasing the depth of our cask portfolio and what we can do with the Glenlivet.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah, it is very nice. I really like the 21. At the event was the first time I had the chance to try the 21. And it stuck out for me because, like you said, despite being 43%, it has a very nice viscosity. It drinks like a full body whiskey, almost dessert-like whiskey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the 25, which is not available domestically in Canada, but is in like travel retail. I saw a bottle at Pearson Airport the other day. The 25 is a Pedro Jimenez and a cognac finish. Okay. So not Oloroso, not port, but PX and cognac. Oh wow. And then that is like, you could eat it with a spoon. That is like pure dessert, like that's super awesome. Duper syrupy sweet. But yeah, for me, like, and also for our master blender Sandy, I always tend to go more towards Oloroso when I go sherry cask than PX. Just because I like that dry spice of an Oloroso.
Sure.
But yeah, this is a cracker of a drum.
Yeah, this one I'm getting like a lot of rich fruit, and then a little bit of like maybe coffee bean on there as well, which I love.
Yeah.
That's Oloroso. Yeah. That dark coffee, roasted coffee.
Yeah.
And then you've still got the fruity notes to it. You know, the Glenlivet character shines at 15, at 21, I think even at 40. Because, you know, our blending team are very exceptional at never over oaking anything. And they still want those light, fruity Glenlivet character to be at the heart. But yeah, it has that coffee note, that rich spice, cinnamons, nutmegs. I can still feel the finish on my tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's excellent stuff.
Yeah.
And this one's available across Canada at the moment as well.
Yeah, the 21-year-old's available across Canada, absolutely.
It seemed to be the one that was hardest to track down in the past with the archives back in the day. Is there a bigger distribution of the 21 now, or?
Yeah, there probably is a better distribution for it now. It's still a batch release, you know what I mean? It's not something we're making on volume. And I'm not saying you're going to find it at every LCBO in Ontario, but it is available to purchase at select stores and online through online channels. So, but yeah, there probably is a better process now for distributing the Glenlivet. But in general, Canada is an incredibly important market for us at the Glenlivet, which is why we have such an amazing range. It's why we have whiskies like the 14-year-old, which are only available in North America. Like, I'm now putting that in every tasting I do because I couldn't get a bottle of it in the UK.
Yeah.
When I was back in Scotland as an ambassador. So, like, I'm like, oh, I'm going to show this one off because I couldn't taste it. So, yeah, it's a super important market. So, yeah, we do want the Glenlivet at 21 to be shared as much as it can be.
There's got to be like a level of like disdain in like the UK where like releases go, you know, to North America and like, why can't we get this here? Like we experience it too, even with the Canadian distilleries who put good stuff down in the US that like we don't get in this market. We're like, guys, you make it here. Yeah. Give it to us.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. Listen, I've travelled a little bit with this role. When I was based in the UK, I was based in Scotland hosting people at the distillery, but I would also travel a little bit. I got to go to Mexico and Dubai. And I would always take an empty suitcase to fill it with the exclusive releases for the market or travel retail to take back to the UK. Be that for my personal collection or for tastings and events.
Yeah, even in the US too, I know, because like Blanton's obviously a big bourbon brand. People love Blanton's, and you know, they're straight from the barrel, which arguably was the best Blanton's. You know, only available internationally until recently when they finally started releasing it in the US. But like, I guess like a weird, you know, strategy for marketing. And I get that you want to release different things in different markets, but you know, they're really good stuff. You gotta do domestically.
Crown Royal does it to us all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Everything's available in Texas.
Right.
For whatever reason. But yeah, no, these are both available here, and I'm really enjoying them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like, for us, obviously, you know, we gravitate to higher ABV stuff.
Sure.
There's obviously a time and a place for, you know, 40%, 43% whiskey, you know, starting the palate off, or just times where you don't want cask strength all the time.
So I'm the same. Like, I'm a whiskey drinker.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky to have, you know, lived in Scotland, and we've got incredible whiskey bars there, the same as we do here in Canada. And sometimes I want a whiskey that's, you know, oily and phenolic and a bit of a monster.
Yeah.
And sometimes I want a whiskey where I don't need to do my homework.
Yeah.
And I can sit and I can enjoy, and it's sweet and it's balanced and it's got the perfect balance of sherry cask with bourbon. And, you know, as you say, there's a time and a place, right? Yep. People always ask, like, a brand ambassador, like, what's your favourite whiskey? And the brand ambassador stock answer is, what one are you buying me?
Yeah, right.
It's like, especially for a Scotsman.
Sure.
So it's, you know, there's a time and a place for everything, and the Glenlivet 15 for me is the amount of times at tastings I'll show that to someone and they'll go, I always have a bottle in the house. Like you said with the 18, right? Like, I've always got a bottle. It's the whiskey I share when my father-in-law comes round or whatever. Like, it's just easy, approachable. It's like opening a bottle of champagne. Like, you know everyone's going to enjoy a glass.
Right.
Yeah. It's
we call it pour and play on this
pour
channel.
Pour and play. It's like a good time to drink that is like pre-dinner cocktail hour. Yep. You know, like on the weekend, maybe, you know, 4 or 5 p.m. where it's like you don't want anything crazy, but just something like light and like really good.
Yeah.
Rob and I went through a time where we only drank cask strength and our palates were just like destroyed. Where like we only had cask strength for like a year.
Yeah.
Like 365 days of nothing but cask strength whiskey.
It's hilarious because just today I posted a poll, or no, it was yesterday. I posted a poll in the Whiskey in the Six chat on Facebook, Facebook Messenger, and it was, is it a full circle moment when your cask strength whiskey start to collect dust on your bar and you're always reaching for something that doesn't put up a big fight and you can just chill and drink that whiskey,
right?
And that's it feels that way, like when you go full circle, and you know, because you go through the entry level period where you can, you know, your palate can only tolerate so much heat and that sort of thing, and then you become a little bit more advanced and you fancy yourself an aficionado or whatever.
It's like your adolescent stage, your teenage stage of drinking, where you're like, I only drink cask strength.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
don't even pour me anything else.
Yeah, and then you almost like balk at like anything that's not cask strength. And then you realize that that's a very silly kind of approach, and then you kind of go back. Yeah. So it's full circle.
Yeah, you know, you gotta have the variety for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you need everything on your bar.
And we see that as well, like I see that with blends, like because I'm a Scotch whisky ambassador, I represent the Glenlivet and Aberlour as single malts, but I also represent Chivas Regal and Royal Salute as blends, and Ballantine's as well. And I see like generally a lot of people start with the blends, you know what I mean, like a Chivas 12 or a Black Label, those tend to be the whiskies that get a lot of people into drinking Scotch.
Sure. Yeah.
And then they'll, you know, move only to malts. That's the only thing for me. I only drink malt whiskey. And then there comes a time after that where you go, oh, actually, well-aged grain whiskey is amazing.
Right.
And when you can use that as the sort of canvas for the more flavorful malts, like the Royal Salute Signature Blend, which is for my money like just an incredible blended Scotch. Like you got Speyside in there, you got really good grain, you got a little bit of Islay. Like I'm not saying it's your 65% cask strength bomb, but it's rounded, it's got flavour, it's, you know, it's balanced, and there's time and a place for everything, I think is the moral of the story.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Do you want to move on to the cornerstone?
Do you want to move on to the
Obviously I do.
I mean, just presentation alone, this thing is an absolute monster. I'm gonna let you introduce all the fantastic details about this whiskey.
And I'll show a quick video that I took when you were unboxing this thing, because you put on white gloves, which is hilarious. I don't know, like, if you follow like hockey at all. Obviously, we are huge into hockey right now. It's hockey playoffs. The Stanley Cup obviously always carried away someone with white gloves on, and it kind of like reminded me of that. It's like, oh, we're pulling out the big trophy here.
No, I am getting very into hockey actually. I've just moved to Canada, and I'm already a Leafs fan.
Oh, okay.
I think that's going to give me a lifetime of heartbreak.
It will.
As an Aberdeen Football Club fan, I'm used to that. So, so yeah, absolutely. The liquid inside is incredibly special. But just to talk to the bottle for a second. So you can see here the tube, which is, you know, copper coloured, copper pot stills, very iconic. Our copper pot stills at the Glenlivet, our founder George Smith basically spent his life perfecting, and for 150 years we've used that silhouette. They've been copied by a lot of distilleries all over the world. These sort of lantern shaped stills, they're very tall and high. They create a very light, there's a lot of reflux in there, very light, delicate spirit. You've got the little pop of teal, sort of around the waist, with our founder George Smith on the front. Teal, very much our colour at the Glenlivet. I was wearing a very teal blazer at that event, which meant anytime anyone had a question, they knew exactly where to find me. You could just spot me running through the crowd. And yeah, this is the bottle here, the Glenlivet 40-year-old. It is a 40-year-old single malt minimum, and it has been fully finished in a bespoke sherry cask. What does that mean? That means around 5 years ago, we wanted to do something really special for our 200th anniversary. So our cask master Kevin worked with our sherry cask supplier in Jerez, which is Jose Miguel Martin, which is a very famous bodega, and basically got samples of sherry sent over. They tried the Oloroso, they tried the Pedro Jimenez, and instead of picking one style, they blended the sherry together, creating something wholly bespoke. That sherry went into the European oak sherry casks in Jerez. It conditioned the oak for 2 years, And then those casks were sent over to us, where we laid this ultra mature Glenlivet into ostensibly a turbocharged sherry cask.
Okay, this is very interesting.
I don't
Is that
think
done
anybody-
before?
I was just gonna say that.
Where
I don't
like
think that's ever been done.
you're essentially like blending different sherries together, seasoning the cask with that.
Absolutely. So we did it with our 55-year-old, which was the oldest ever expression we released.
Okay.
We released last year, which is coming to Canada at the end of this year, actually. But that had some Palo Cortado as well in the mix. So it was Oloroso, Palo Cortado, and PX. This is PX and Oloroso, and it's meant to sort of perfectly complement this ultra-aged Glenlivet as well as the cask it went into.
Right away when I noticed it, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm getting like that tea, that like interesting,
beautiful.
very tea note. Which like when we drink, very high aged stuff, we've been very privileged to try some crazy high aged things. That's kind of one note that stands out. It's like you kind of get this like really interesting tea. I know there was a company called David's Tea, and they release crazy different tea blends, and you get. It's not just like your English breakfast tea or whatever. You get like fruit notes with this tea and stuff like that, and I'm getting that right away.
Absolutely. Maybe you haven't thought of this yet, but the oldest whiskey we've ever tried, had the luxury of trying, was an 80-year-old Glenlivet. So
I was trying to make a joke about like, oh yeah, we've drank actually like double this age before, without trying to seem like pretentious or like a douche or whatever. But like I couldn't think of a way to like express the joke without sounding like an idiot or douchey. So I was like, I won't say it. But since you mentioned it, yeah,
That's one you can flex.
right.
For sure.
So we were very fortunate to be invited to an event where they poured the the oldest bottle ever bottled at the time.
Absolutely.
The Gordon MacPhail Glenlivet, which
Until McCallum was like, hold my drink, and released in '81 the year after.
yeah.
Yeah, that is something about the Glenlivet is, there is this ultra-aged stock because the whiskey's distillery's been going for 201 years.
Yeah.
And it's been remarkably consistent for 201 years, so that's why you have seen such ultra-aged Glenlivet 80, 55 being released.
We've talked to people before about like what makes a spirit really good to super age. Like, there's stuff like Mortlock has really old age stuff. Glenlivet has really old age stuff. Macallan as well. Where other spirits might, phase out.
Yeah.
Can't
go that
fade
far.
away maybe.
It's too oaky.
What is it about, in your opinion, makes it so good?
Absolutely, it's a really good question. And a question I get asked quite a lot is, did you know this was going to be a 40-year-old single malt?
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, for most of this whiskey's life, no.
Mm-hmm.
It was spirit that came off the still in the mid-80s. It was filled into cask, and it was cared for by generations of custodians who really carefully monitored it. And obviously by the time a whiskey's getting to 20, 25, 30, the blending team are eagle-eyed, precise on how they're monitoring that. What's the reason to bottle at 40 rather than 50 or 42 or whatever it may be? That's just because of, it's almost like the ripeness of a fruit. Like you kind of know, our blending team are very good at knowing what the life cycle of the cask will be. In terms of, your question of compared to other spirits, why do we feel Scotch, single malt Scotch can go on so long? It's a very good question. There's ways we can control maturation within the warehouse. So, we don't have the same temperature fluctuations that you get in somewhere like Louisville or in Canada. You go into a dunnage warehouse in Scotland, it's the same temperature on the hottest day of the year as it is on the coldest day of the year.
Yeah.
Like
I did not know.
It's the same. Like I've done tours of dunnage warehouses, and you step in on a July 15th Scottish summer, which is July 14th to July 16th. Like you step in Scottish summer and you go,
One day,
ooh, and then you step in the winter and it's nice and warm. Like
Really?
it's so acclimate. So
Interesting.
these casks can sit patiently
It's
for
just
a
that
long
like
time.
low and slow kind of method. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I took a sip of this, and right, like when it hits your palate, sometimes you think like older whiskey, it wouldn't be as impactful and as like full on your palate as it is, and this thing just explodes off your palate. I really get. I don't know if you ever had like fruit leather, like those like fruit pressed like fruit snacks essentially. They're like strips. I get that on the palate, which is absolutely phenomenal. It's just really, really nice.
I always talk about Pedro Jimenez when I talk about Pedro Jimenez matured whiskies is like strawberry laces, which is like a very like British candy, but it is that sort of fruit leather, that kind of like beautiful sweetness, and the first tasting note you've not come out with oak. You know what I mean? You've come out with tea, you've come out with fruit, strawberry. Like our master blender Sandy, I was lucky to have a dram with Sandy at the launch of the 55-year-old, and we were standing having a dram at the bar and we were talking about it, and you know, the last thing our blending team want to do is release a whiskey that's over oaked. They want to preserve the Glenlivet's core DNA, that fruity character, even an ultra age statement like 40 years.
And this, did we mention before the ABV? It is cask strength.
It is cask strength, so 46.9%, and like I'm sure you guys will agree, those whiskies that naturally drop in ABV towards your 46, like those are the best whiskies. The flavors are so concentrated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is beautiful. I mean,
it is beautiful.
So again, to mention that we always talk about as soon as a whiskey hits its prime, it starts to get these beautiful tea notes, and it usually happens after 31, 32. Sometimes it can happen before that, and if it carries that throughout its life, it just gets better and better, and this has the exact note that I'm looking for when I'm looking for an old whiskey.
Yeah. It's that like
beautiful tea, black tea, mango, dark chocolate, and then there's this like crazy sweetness in there too.
Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah, really, really good.
Yeah.
And a very interesting sherry blend cask seasoning kind of thing going on with it. Absolutely. Which I've never heard of before.
Yeah, I mean, the Glenlivet, we're sort of continually innovating. That's something we've done for 200 years. You know, we've got whiskies like the 12-year-old, which are classic and iconic, traditional Speyside flavours, American oak matured, but then we'll play around with cask finishing. You know, we've got a whiskey which should arrive in Canada fairly soon, which is finished in what we call fusion casks, which is a bespoke cask where we've taken the ends off first fill bourbon and first fill rum and made a custom cask and then put it into that. It's just like different ways you can play with the wood. Right. With a finish, with something like this, you should only ever be adding. You should never take anything away.
Yeah.
And after a year in the turbocharged sherry cask, because this whiskey was already so incredible, after a year, nothing really happened. Okay. It didn't really change.
Oh, wow.
2 years, a bit's changed. It was 3 years of that essentially secondary maturation, where it's turbocharged it. It's just given those layers of depth and complexity, those rich spices, stone fruits. Yeah, just beautiful.
So I'm getting, I don't know if you guys are getting this in power of suggestion, but a beautiful, you had mentioned it earlier, how the Glenlivet like style is this pineapple and tropical fruit, and I really do get this like beautiful ripe mango, beautiful ripe pineapple. It's still there, which I find crazy considering all these years. And then you still have it, it's a layered type thing, so you get your tea first, then the beautiful fruits come through, and the finish is just, I don't know.
Yeah, I was getting kind of like a melted ice cream sensation on the bottom of my tongue, like a butterscotch or something. But yeah, I mean, banana and pineapple, those flavors are in it at 12 and at 40. Like that's crazy, right? It like I that's magic for me. That's the magic of it.
Well, you get what you would expect when you have a 40-year-old Scotch, and you're paying, what is this, $7,000?
$7,500.
$7,500 Canadian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
The quality of the bottle is, you know, if that's your price range, if that's the kind of money you could spend, then this is a whiskey to get, because it's definitely gonna deliver liquid.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like, this stuff was put down in, you know, the early 80s, I guess, right?
I'm curious, is it 85 or is it 84?
So the age of the youngest spirit is around the mid 80s, but obviously some of the stock might be slightly older because it's a formula of the malt that's then been finished. But it, like the mid 80s as a period for Scotch is incredibly interesting, because it was when a lot of people there was a bit of a downturn and some distilleries closed. And in all honesty, a mirror of how a lot of things are now in the industry. That, you know, people are predicting downturns, and the alcohol industry is going through an interesting period. But distilleries like the Glenlivet weathered the storm.
Yeah.
And we're still there. You know, we employ over 50 people in a very remote area of Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
I was based at the Glenlivet for a couple of years before I moved to Canada, and the amount of time I'd meet someone out and about who'd go, Jack, can you get me a job at the distillery? Because they're well looked after, well paid. We've got a guy in expansion 2 of the Glenlivet, so one of our still houses, Billy, who joined the Glenlivet in the mid-80s. He's been at the distillery for 40 years.
Wow.
That's generations of care, that's custodians, that's mastery. So, as you say, it's around the mid-80s the spirit was laid down. No one would have predicted it would have ended up as one of the world's rarest single malts, but it was just been cared for by generations of people, constant monitoring, assessment, adjustment, and it's arrived here now.
Yeah, that's the job I want, just to monitor casks.
That's a nice job to get into.
It's like, you think this 4-year-old's ready to bottle? I was like, let's give it 5 more.
So, you're probably about a decade younger than we are. So this is essentially the youngest stuff in here is distilled at around the same time we were born.
Yeah, pretty
is
close.
pretty crazy.
Pretty close. Pretty cool.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'll be 41 in October, so this is pretty much my age.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Excellent
When
stuff.
was this bottled?
This was bottled end of last year.
The end of last year. So
Yeah,
we're the
yeah.
same age then. So the
There you
youngest
go.
stuff is 1984.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
It has a little more character than you, though.
Well, that's the base. Of course it does. I mean, who are we kidding?
But yeah, no, it's a permanent addition to the collection as well. So it's
That's
the
really
oldest
cool.
ever permanent addition
Okay.
to the Glenlivet collection. You
Nice.
know, like our 55-year-old that we released last year, that was a one-off. The 40, you know, we have the stock laid down to release it. I'm not saying it's going to come out often, but maybe
Right.
annually, batch to batch, and the ABV will vary sort of batch to batch. Which is great because, you know, we only got about 30 bottles in Canada, and
I was gonna say, so how many bottles total was
in Canada we took I want to say 36.
36, and then out of the whole batch?
That's a question for our cask master, but it's very limited. Like we launched it in the UK end of last year, and many of the sort of main UK channels, and a lot of them have already sold through.
Do you know how many casks were totally involved?
Good question. I'm not sure actually. In
Okay.
all honesty, but yeah, not a tremendous amount for whiskey at this age.
Yeah,
But
because you probably would get, well, I mean, how much liquid is left, right, at that time?
Right. My
In the
guess
cask.
is Canada got 30. The US, maybe, did they even get any because of the tariffs? Because of Donald Trump?
I don't know.
Hypothetically, they got maybe, let's say, close to that much, if not, maybe a little bit more, maybe 50. Right? Europe probably got the rest. Or, well, maybe Asia some. I'm going to guess that there's less than 300 bottles of this.
Okay, so maybe just 2 casks, then 2
But it
other
could be
casks.
more because, remember, they're 40 years old. So
Yeah.
it could be like 30% of a cask.
Right.
And that's something you need to carefully monitor is, you know, as you lose the liquid volume, the oak influence speeds way up. So that's something they need to really carefully monitor in terms of, you know, seeing this whiskey to its finish line at a 4-year-old single malt.
Yeah, I would imagine that the Angels share by 40 even in Scotland, despite the lack of fluctuation in temperature in the dunnages, you're probably still around maybe 70% Angel share at that point.
Yeah, it's massive.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else before we wrap it up?
No, I'll be at Spirit of Toronto tomorrow. I don't know if you guys are going to be there. Not to immediately date this episode. Representing Aberlour. Got some lovely Aberlour single
nice.
casks,
Okay.
which I'm going to be sharing cask strength Oloroso Hogshead Aberlour,
Beautiful.
which is available at the LCBO.
That's pretty cool.
12 bottles left in Canada.
Oh wow.
But no, yeah, very, very happy to be here, guys, and we'll make sure you're along for the 41-year-old next time.
Well, the pleasure is ours. Thank you so much for coming and bringing these amazing scotches and getting us, you know, the opportunity to try this and sharing it with everyone else.
Yeah, and I believe there's still some available at BSW.
There is, that's correct, yeah.
Yeah, so BSW has the 40-year-old on sale on their website. You guys can check that out. And I know for a fact that they probably have at least the 15, if not the 18 and the 21 as
Yeah,
well.
they have the full range at BSW.
Yeah. LCBO is getting how many of these?
So there's actually not any in Ontario.
Okay.
but there are provinces across Canada. Right now, BSW is the only place to purchase it, but it will become available to other provinces throughout the year.
Well, the good news is Ontario is one of the provinces that have knocked down the borders, so you can now buy outside of the province.
There you go. Yeah.
So
As
it's legal.
as it should
Not
be.
that we haven't been doing it for a long time.
Jack, thanks so much for coming, and it was an honor. So appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Jack.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. Really much appreciated. Comment down below, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.